police officer looked exhausted. He stood on my porch, a buffer between me and the screaming woman on my lawn. And he had the weary, hollowed-out look of a man who had seen the absolute apex of human absurdity and was not impressed. "He's holding our property hostage." The woman shrieked, her voice a shrill, piercing siren of pure rage. It was Candace, the president of our homeowners association. "That cabin is a community asset, is the presidential cabin, is my designated weekend to use it. And this person is refusing to leave. He is trespassing in our community's cabin. I want him arrested." Stood in my own doorway, speechless, my mind struggling to process the sheer mind-bending delusion of what I was hearing. My cabin. Place I had bought and paid for. The place where I wrote my novels, my private sanctuary. She was claiming it was hers for the weekend, and she had called the police to have me, the actual owner, arrested as a trespasser. The two young officers looked from her frantic, hysterical face to my stunned, bewildered one, and it was clear. They had no idea what to do. She was the HOA president, an official-sounding title. I was just a guy in a t-shirt. And that's when everything went wrong. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment. What would you do if this happened to you? And subscribe to HOA Files. To understand how a woman could possibly come to believe she had the right to use my home as her personal weekend getaway, you have to understand the place, and you have to understand her. My name is Elias. I write fantasy novels for a living. My world is one of dragons, ancient magic, and epic quests. For years, I lived and worked in a cramped city apartment. The noise and chaos, a constant battle against the quiet focus. I needed to build my worlds. After my last book hit the bestseller list, I decided to finally buy myself the one thing I had always dreamed of, a writing retreat, place of solitude and inspiration. I found it in a community called Pinnacle Peak Preserve. It was a high-end, exclusive mountain development full of massive modern homes. But the property I bought was different. It was the original home in the valley, the founder's cabin, built 100 years ago by the man who had first settled this land. It was a masterpiece of rustic architecture, a beautiful, historic log and stone structure with a stone fireplace and a wide, sweeping porch that had the single best view of the mountains in the entire valley. It was a place of character, of history, a stark contrast to the sterile, cookie-cutter mansions that surrounded it. It was my dream. I was, of course, a full, dues-paying member of the Pinnacle Peak HOA. I had no problem with that. I'm a quiet, private person. I follow the rules. I just wanted to be left alone to write my books in peace. The ruler of this mountain kingdom was the HOA president, Candace, was a woman who seemed to be perpetually dissatisfied with the world for not being quite as perfect as she was. She was the second wife of a very wealthy and much older tech mogul, and she carried herself with the unshakable, aggressive entitlement of someone who has never been told no in her adult life. Our first meeting was, in retrospect, a giant, flashing warning sign. She came to my cabin the day after I moved in, not to welcome me, but to inspect me. She gave my simple, functional furniture a disdainful look and then turned to the magnificent view from my porch. "This cabin is our little jewel," she said, not looking at me, but at the mountains, as if she owned them too. "The whole community is just so proud of it. We all love it." The way she said "we" and our sent a strange little chill down my spine. It was as if she saw me not as the owner, but as a temporary caretaker of a public monument. "It's a special place," I agreed politely. "Indeed," she said. "There are so many wonderful old traditions here at Pinnacle Peak, I'm sure. You'll learn them all soon enough." She gave me a tight, condescending smile and left. I didn't think much of it at the time. I was too busy setting up my writing space, too lost in the joy of my new home. I had no idea that one of those old traditions she mentioned involved the keys to my front door. A month later, I received an email. The subject line was "Scheduling Confirmation Founder's Cabin." It was from Candace. I opened it, my brow furrowed in confusion. The email was short and to the point. "Hi Elias, just a friendly reminder and confirmation for the upcoming Labor Day weekend? The board has me down for my official use of the founder's cabin from Friday the 2nd to Monday the 5th. I just wanted to confirm that you'll have the cabin professionally cleaned, and the keys left with me or the community. Manager, by 3 p.m. on Friday. The family is so looking forward to it. Thanks, Candace. I read the email 3 times. I thought it was a joke, a prank, or maybe a bizarre misunderstanding, some holdover from a previous owner who had rented the place out. It had to be a mistake, I replied, trying to be as polite and non-confrontational as possible. Hi, Candace. I think there may have been some kind of mix-up or a misunderstanding. This cabin is my private, full-time residence and is not a community rental property. I'll be here working that weekend. Hope you have a great holiday regardless. Best, Elias. A reply came back in less than 5 minutes. The friendly tone was gone. Elias, there is no mix-up. The founder's cabin has always been made available for the personal use of the HOA president and other board members on major holiday weekends. It is a community tradition, and it is considered part of your duty and privilege as the owner of that historic and important property. This is a non-negotiable expectation. I will expect the keys on Friday. My jaw dropped. The sheer, mind-boggling, galactic-level entitlement of it left me speechless. It wasn't a mistake. She actually believed this. She believed that because she was the HOA president, she had the right to demand I vacate my own home so her family could have a little holiday weekend in it. My amusement quickly evaporated, placed by a cold, hard anger. This was not just a misunderstanding. This was an aggressive, predatory attempt to infringe on my most basic right as a homeowner. I immediately went back to the mountain of closing documents and the 3-inch thick binder of HOA covenants and bylaws. I spent the next 4 hours reading every single mind-numbing page. And of course, there was absolutely no mention of this insane tradition. Not a single word, clause, or subsection that gave the HOA board the right to use anyone's private home for anything ever. The next day, I had my lawyer draft and send a formal, legally unambiguous letter. It stated in no uncertain terms that my home was my private property, that it was not available for her use or anyone else's, and that any further attempts to make such a demand would be considered harassment. We sent it via certified mail. Thought that would be the end of it. I thought even someone as entitled as Candace would have to back down when faced with a clear legal threat. How little I knew her. To her, my lawyer's letter was not a clarification of my rights. It was a declaration of war, and the war began. The violation notices started appearing taped to my front door. The first was for my small, tasteful writer's shed I had built in the backyard. Unapproved auxiliary structure. It had been there for a month without complaint. The next was a fine for a smoke nuisance from my chimney on a cold night. I was, apparently, no longer allowed to use my fireplace. Her husband, a silent, grim-looking man who clearly lived in her shadow, began making slow, deliberate drive-bys. Past my cabin, his eyes lingering on my house with a look of open hostility. It was a campaign of petty harassment designed to make my life so miserable that I would either give in to her insane demand or just give up and sell the cabin. But I'm a fantasy writer. Spend my days writing about stubborn heroes who refuse to bow to tyrants. I was not about to be bullied out of my own home by a woman whose greatest quest was finding a parking spot for her oversized SUV at the yoga studio. And then, the week before Labor Day, the final threatening email arrived. Elias, I see that you have still not made any arrangements to vacate the cabin for the upcoming weekend. This is your final notice. The cabin has been promised to my family for the holiday. It is a tradition. We will be arriving on Friday at 5 p.m. to take possession for the weekend. We expect the property to be clean and available to us. If you are still there, you will be considered to be trespassing on a community-designated property, and we will have you removed by the authorities. I will not have my family's holiday plans ruined by your selfishness. I just stared at the email, the words blurring in front of my eyes. She was actually going to do it. She was going to show up with her family and her suitcases, and when I refused to let her in, she was going to call the police and claim that I was the trespasser. It was a plan so delusional, so completely unhinged from reality. A part of me couldn't believe she would actually go through with it. but she did. And that brings us to that Friday evening. I was in my study, trying to work, but the knot of anxiety in my stomach was making it impossible. Right at 5 p.m., a gleaming black Escalade pulled into my driveway. Out stepped Candace, her husband, and their 2 sullen, college-aged children. They walked up to my front door, pulling their designer luggage behind them, as if they were checking into the Four Seasons. I met them at the door. I decided to record the interaction on my phone, a small measure of self-protection. "Candace," I said, as calmly as I could, I believe I made myself clear. "This is my home. You are not staying here. Trespassing. Please leave." And that's when she had her meltdown. The carefully constructed facade of the calm, powerful matriarch shattered into a million pieces, revealing the screaming, entitled toddler that had been lurking beneath the surface all along. "No?" she shrieked, her face turning a blotchy, furious red. "I will not leave. This is my cabin for the weekend. It is my right. I am the president. You are ruining everything." She pulled out her phone and dialed 911, and in a performance worthy of a daytime soap opera, she began to cry, great, heaving, theatrical sobs. "Help!" she cried into the phone. "Please, send an officer!" It's a man, a squatter in our community's presidential cabin. He's taken it over, and he's refusing to let me and my family in for our designated weekend. He's very aggressive. I'm afraid for my children's safety. And that's how I ended up on my own porch, facing 2 very confused police officers. While the HOA president accused me of trespassing in my own home, the senior officer, a man with a tired, patient face, was trying his best to make sense of the bizarre situation. "So, ma'am," he said to Candace, who had now composed herself into a figure of trembling, victimized dignity. "Let me get this straight. You are the HOA president." "Yes," she said, dabbing at her dry eyes with a tissue. "And you are claiming that this man," he said, gesturing to me, "is a squatter in a cabin that belongs to the community?" "Precisely," she said. "It is the founder's cabin. It has always been used by the president on holiday weekends. It's a tradition. He moved in and changed the locks. He's holding it hostage." The officer turned to me. The look on his face was one of profound weariness. "Sir, what's your side of this?" "My side is very simple, officer," I said, trying to keep the rage out of my voice. "My name is Elias Vance. I am the legal owner of this home. I have the deed, the title, and the driver's license with this address on it to prove it. This woman is a neighbor who believes, for reasons I cannot begin to fathom, that she has the right to evict me from my own home so her family can use it for a weekend getaway. She is the one who is trespassing." The officer sighed, a deep, heavy sound. He turned back to Candace. "Ma'am, can you show me anything in your HOA bylaws, any document that states that you have a legal right to use this private residence?" Candace's face, which had been a mask of victimhood, began to crumble. "It's not in the bylaws," she sputtered, her voice rising in frustration. "It's a tradition. It's an unwritten rule. It's been this way for years. It's our right. He is a new owner. He has to respect our traditions." The officer looked at me, then at her, and then back at me. I could see the moment he made. His decision? "Sir," he said to me, "if you could just show me your ID and a proof of residence, like the deed, we can clear this up." Of course, I said, relieved that sanity was finally prevailing. I turned to go back inside, too. Get the documents. And that's when Candace completely, totally, and spectacularly lost her mind. The realization that she was about to be proven wrong. That her grand holiday weekend was not going to happen. That she was about to be publicly humiliated in front of the police and her own family was too much for her to bear. "No," screamed, her voice a raw, animalistic shriek of pure fury. She actually lunged forward, trying to push past the officer, trying to get to my front door. "You don't get to win. I am the president. I run this community. You are a nobody. I promised my children this cabin. You are supposed to work for me." She screamed at the officer, her face contorted, spittle flying from her lips. The officer, caught by surprise, stumbled back. He put out a hand to stop her, and she slapped it away, then shoved him hard in the chest. Everything seemed to happen In an instant, the officer's partner, who had been silent until now, moved in. The senior officer, his face now a mask of cold, hard professionalism, grabbed Candace's arm. "Ma'am, you are out of control," he said, his voice now a firm, no-nonsense command. "You are interfering with a police investigation, and you just assaulted an officer. You are under arrest." The words seemed to hang in the air for a moment, more shocking than any of her screams. Her husband, who had been standing by silently, jaw stared, his face pale. Her kids looked mortified, and Candace just collapsed into a fit of hysterical, weeping rage as the officer clicked the handcuffs onto her wrists. Unbeknownst to her, I had been recording the entire interaction. On my phone, from the moment she had started screaming on my porch, my security camera had captured it all as well. And of course, the officer's own body cameras had recorded every second of her insane, entitled Meltdown, her admission that this was all about a personal promise to her family and her final, fateful act of assaulting a police officer. She was taken away in the back of a patrol car. Her weekend getaway to my cabin officially canceled. The video footage from my security camera, my phone, and most damningly, the police body cameras, was presented by the county prosecutor at an emergency, closed-door HOA board meeting the following week. The other board members, horrified at the liability she had exposed them to and the sheer public humiliation she had brought upon their exclusive community, voted unanimously to have her removed from her presidency and permanently stripped of her membership. She was facing criminal charges for assaulting an officer and filing a false police report. Her husband filed for divorce a month later. Her perfect, curated world had been completely and utterly destroyed by her own spectacular meltdown. This whole insane saga taught me a powerful lesson, one that I might even put in one of my books someday. Entitlement is a fantasy. It's a story that people tell themselves, a world they build where their own desires are the only laws that matter. They believe that their position, their wealth, or the sheer force of their will gives them the right to take whatever they want. But reality and the actual real-world law have a funny way of showing up at your door, and they really don't care about your holiday weekend plans. Candace tried to write herself as the queen in her own story, but she ended up being just another villain, vanquished by a reality she refused to accept. Candace's trial is next month, and the judge has already denied her lawyer's motion to have the body camera footage suppressed. But her husband, as part of their nasty divorce settlement, just won a seat on the HOA's Architectural Review Committee. My writer's shed is the very first item on their next meeting's agenda.